Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 494 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our fifth book just came out. It's called Perseverance and How to Be a Great Fraternity or Sorority Alumnus. So I want you to go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, the art of public speaking has totally transformed my life. Without that skill, I would not have a group of 27 speakers that I'm leading to share their messages on college campuses all over the country. I do believe that it is a critical skill that every person listening needs in order to be successful in life. Whether it's during an interview for a job or a meeting with a group of clients, or even telling your life story on a stage in front of 5,000 college students, the ability to tell stories effectively will help you achieve your goals in life. To drive home that point, let's talk to the speech slayer. Public speaking is the number one skill to grow your business. Imagine speaking with confidence and ease and articulating your message, ideas, and story in a way that captivates audiences. Laura Reid is a speaker, an author, and a speaker coach who will help you find your voice and slay the stage. Whether you are speaking to a ballroom or a boardroom, it's time to be the speaker you are meant to be. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Aloha. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Aloha. Of course, we're all jealous because here you are in Hawaii and we are stuck in the continental United States for the most part. So we're all very jealous. What can I say, Laura?
I grew up in upstate New York. I scraped ice off windshields for many years, so I'm good.
Right. We're all
Paid my
stuck
dues.
scraping that ice ourselves every morning, going, why are we not in Hawaii? This is what we're saying to ourselves. Now, I wanted to talk about your youth because I think it's so interesting to me that, you are really just an incredible speaker. But the truth is, you grew up with a stutter and you had public speaking anxiety, which I feel like is so common. How did you get beyond all of these hurdles in your youth?
Yeah, if you had told me when I was a little girl that this is what I'd be doing today, I'd call myself a speaker and help others speak, I would never, ever have believed that. I think growing up with a stutter, it wasn't so much the speech fluidity. Like I did years of speech therapy to be able to get through some of my blocks with speaking. What stays with you is the shame that you feel, the embarrassment, kind of the self-loathing that I had, because I felt like I couldn't even answer the simplest questions, especially just what's your name? For whatever reason, this is actually common among stutterers that we have a hard time saying our name because like when you're blocked into a corner and there's only one answer you can say, it can make a lot of anxiety, well up. And it felt like as a little girl, like a monster just lived in my throat. And it'd be sleeping most of the time. But the minute someone asked me a question, or I'd have to speak for some reason, it would wake up. And I just had this sense of dread and it would just eat my words. And what really got me through eventually and into my adult years, I could hide it. I could hide my stutter pretty well. But every once in a while, again, if I'm backed into some kind of corner, it would come up, that sense of dread, and the monster would still be there and wake up. And my catalyst moment actually came, it was my first job back after having my son. It'd been about 2 years, and I was in a teacher staff training actually, and I'll never forget it. And I saw the word on that agenda that I dreaded most: introductions. And I think because I had more anxiety about getting back to work, I really needed that job. As it got closer and closer in that room to my turn to simply introduce myself, I started having all these symptoms well up. I got really dizzy and queasy and hard time breathing. And I didn't really know it at that time, but I was having a panic attack just from the prospect of having to like say my name. And I couldn't do it. I got up and I left the room and I went home sick. But really, I went home ashamed. And I knew something had to change in that moment. Like I couldn't keep living in that kind of fear of speaking because it was exhausting now and it was having a physical impact on my body. So I happened to be walking by this sign. We all get signs given to us, I think, sometimes, if we're open to it. In this case, it was a literal sign, and it was for a storytelling competition in New York, kind of modeled after The Moth, if you're a fan of that on NPR. And it's like I knew with every fiber of my being that I had to enter that competition. And for the first time in my life, instead of hiding who I was, running away from my fears, I ran towards my fear. And I found that what I feared set me free. And I do believe this. I think our fears, what we're nervous about, can be like road signs, like a little map to maybe what we need to actually be running towards. And I got up on that stage, I told my story, and I found this place of refuge. And I'll never forget like the exhilaration I felt in that competition. I won the competition. So that was awesome. I never would have expected that. But more than that, it was like everyone that came up to me afterwards, and I had inspired them to be vulnerable. I told a story about growing up with my stutter, my fear about people in general, such an introvert and speaking, and it inspired other people. And then I realized eventually, like I have done decades worth of learning how to overcome speaking fear to help myself, and it worked. And now I can take all that and I can actually help other people, share their stories and get up on stages. And that's what I've been doing since. And it's really rewarding to see that.
Wow. Well, that is a master class on storytelling for all of our listeners right there. Go back and listen to it because it's incredible. And yeah, I listen, we share so much in common because I also, if anybody who's listening knew me in high school or knew me as a freshman in college, they would never in a million years think that I'm a professional speaker leading a team of 27 professional speakers. They're like, there's no way that this is the same guy because yeah, absolutely, I was completely terrified of it. And even to this day, I think my parents are like, "What? Like you speak for a living?" They're like, "You're not even funny." Like,
Ouch.
thanks, Dad. It's like you give me a lot of confidence there, buddy. Uh,
Parents speak the truth.
they
Yeah.
speak the truth, and it's like, but something happens, and this as an introvert. I mean, something just happens when you get up on that stage, and you feel this sense of calm, and you feel this like just energy that is just, I can't get that energy. I can't chase that high anywhere else except on a stage with 4,000, 5,000 college students in the audience. There's something about that that is just magical. And I come to life unlike anything else that I've ever done in my entire career. So I know I'm in the right place, but you're absolutely right. It's chasing and running towards what was most frightening for me to get to the place where I needed to go. Really
I love
interesting
that.
stuff. Now, as a New Yorker, you decided on SUNY Cortland for your undergraduate experience, and I know exactly where that is because I used to go through that town all the time on my way upstate to SUNY Buffalo. Why
Oh,
did you
wow.
decide on SUNY Cortland of all places?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's easy to miss. I grew up there. I grew up in Cortland. My dad was a art professor at SUNY Cortland.
Mm,
So realistically, that's probably part of it. My dad, because he worked there, I don't know, over the course of a few years, it's a couple $100 for tuition, something like that. But I had amazing professors in that school, amazing English teachers. I loved it. I still am very attached to that, the upstate New York and all those schools there. But here's the real backstory, though. When I was in high school, in my later years, probably junior, senior in high school, I became very rebellious. And I think my introversion kind of turned into this like alter ego or something. I don't know. And I just didn't want to go to school. And I ended up dropping out of school. Like I think I had 2 weeks left before I was going to graduate high school, and I dropped out. And of course, my dad had this like, this huge fit about it. I was living in Virginia with my mom at the time, and part of it is I just despised my high school so much. But I moved back with my dad, and at the time, community colleges were kind of just starting out, and there's this community college that just opened up. I think they're just taking anybody, and they agreed to accept me as a college student to this, the liberal arts program for a 2-year school, if I was going to also take classes that were like what had missed in high school. And so I loved college. Like the minute I started at the community college, I knew, okay, I'm treated like an adult here. This is where I want to be. If I had known, I could have dropped out, stay in school, kids, but still, if I had known, I could have dropped out and gotten my college degree at the same time that I got, my high school diploma. I would have done it sooner. But I was there for 2 years. I did really well there, and then I transferred over to SUNY Cortland. So it's really just my last 2 years, and then eventually I went on to get my master's degree in education. And if this is one of the other things I was very stubborn about in my rebellion, is I refused to take standardized tests. I wasn't going to take that. So I never took SATs. I never took any entrance exams whatsoever. And I still ended up with my master's. So that's just like something I'm really proud of, despite my parents and everything.
As you should be. I think that's
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. And listen, I majored in fraternity in college. So my undergraduate degree was absolutely, my grades were not good. They were
Yeah.
just not good because my priorities were just completely out of whack. And I remember getting into my master's program. And before you do, you have to go in front of the committee and they vote on whether or not to let you into their program and into the cohort in the master's program. And they sat around with me in the room and they were looking at my transcript and they were like, what the hell is this? And I'm in the room and I'm like, I have a body of work that I can show you that proves that I belong here. They basically said, all right, we're going to give it a shot. And sure enough, I got a 4.0 in the master's program and I have a 4.0 in the complete doctorate program. The only thing that I'm working on now is a dissertation. So, understand that, yes,
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, I mean, even if you, think that school is not for you, there are avenues for you to go and get your master's program and get your doctorate, whatever you want to be, you can do this. It's not
Absolutely.
easy. No one's going to sit here and say that it was an easy process or an easy path. But even if you weren't a great student somewhere along the line, there still is plenty of hope for everybody who's out there. So,
Absolutely. Sometimes you have to stick it out through the parts you don't like to get
yeah.
to the part where you get to really choose to be aligned with what you're most passionate about to learn, right? But it's just like sticking it out through those harder times.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about storytelling because you are a great speaker. Talk about the power of storytelling as it relates to a college student organization like a fraternity or a sorority who wants to attract more members into the organization.
Absolutely. Storytelling is what we're all really hardwired to um, to listen to and to share our messages in meaningful ways as humans. And I think when we share stories, it's so much more memorable. We make such an impact sharing a story over facts. So fraternity could share a bunch of facts and information about them, but if they're sharing stories about maybe the transformation of some of the students, just belonging to something, having that sense of community, some of the fun and the joy and all the experiences that it added for them, that is what is truly going to attract people. And actually, one of the a recent client that I worked with, he was a recent college graduate, and he was a volunteer fireman. That's what he became, and he wanted a job as in a fire department as a full-time fireman. And he could run into burning buildings, so courageous, and yet he was terrified of the job interview and of speaking. And, in those job interviews, sometimes the first question they ask is, tell us about yourself, right? And your college experiences. And we need to learn how to tell stories to be able to really share with people that if we want these other positions, even beyond college, being able to share like why you're passionate about it is so important. So I think learning it in college is so good, and then knowing that it's going to be this lifelong learning skill that you can only get better at once you start.
I love that answer. It's really good. I mean, I see on Instagram like all the fraternities on campus basically sharing statistics like you just laid out. This is who we are, this is how many members we have, this is our GPA, this is our national philanthropy we raise money for. But like anything would be so much better if it was just told in like a story format. I mean, and it doesn't have to be something huge. Just tell me how a member in your organization is better because of their affiliation. It could be something really small, like their public speaking skills, or the relationship that you made doing service in your community. And it could be like 2 minutes just telling a story about something in your local community. But that is what we as humans are hardwired to hear and to gravitate towards, rather than just a bullet list of facts. Okay. So start
Absolutely.
thinking about that. I think that's super important. So I think you hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah.
What is your myth busting public speaking advice for college students who are completely frightened to get up on stage?
That's a good question. Well, most people say that you need to break out of your comfort zone in order to grow, right? You see it on social media all the time in order to do this scary thing. And I say the opposite. I say to stay in it. And here's how that works with public speaking is if you can imagine how you feel in your ideal comfort zone, right? Whether it's on a couch with Netflix and chill, or you're out in nature, whatever it is, on a beach in Hawaii. Those feelings, like for me, is just, being alone in nature. And when I'm alone in nature, I feel very peaceful. I feel like I could just be myself. I'm just absolutely me and calm. And if you can get in touch with those feelings that you have yourself, write them down, like really know them, and then set the intention before you're speaking or you got a job interview or you're going on, to do a Facebook live or Instagram live, whatever it is, to to be that, just expand it out, expand your comfort zone out to encompass the scary thing. It works so much better than, forcing yourselves to say, or we're like breaking out. It's kind of violent, like I'm breaking out of my comfort zone. And what happens when we tell ourselves that, our brains go into like a nervous brain mode. And there is a lot of science behind this. I'm not going to go into, but there is science behind it. And what happens is we forget our words, all the nervous symptoms come up in our bodies physically, all the things that we absolutely don't want to happen when we're speaking. And the opposite of that, like the calm brain, can remember things, right? We can just be conversational, be ourselves, authentic. That's what the listeners want, whether it's an audience of one or thousands. We want, like, it's not so much a presentation or we're doing this huge thing. It's just a conversation every time we speak. And the more conversational you can be, the more calm you can be, the better. So I stopped. I used to write on sticky notes and just put them up if I was doing like a virtual speaking and I was scared. I put like confident, okay, I got to just be confident. I got to fake it till I make it. Instead, I took that down and just wrote calm. And it was such a game changer for me to do that.
Wow, really nice tip. I like that. You're absolutely right. The more conversational, the more calm you are up on stage. I just think the better it hits. So you have to get to that space and figure out how to
Mm.
get there. Will you also talk about some deadly sins of public speaking? What are those things that we should be avoiding?
The seven deadly sins of public speaking. It's
Yes.
there's a lot more than that. And I see them all the time. But I would say one of the biggest is, when we're nervous, sometimes we tend to rely heavily on, let's say, presentation slides, and we're reading, whether it's reading the PowerPoints or we're reading our notes, and we all know that you're reading. And how I feel, which I think a lot of audience members maybe relate to, is if you're reading your slides or reading your notes, I can read that faster than I can listen to you speak. So this could be an email. That's how I feel. Why are we here? So I think sometimes just getting in touch with, not so much worried about you getting through it, but thinking about the audience, right? What message do I have that the audience is really going to relate to? Because it's not really about us. And so a lot of times we put a lot of the focus on ourselves, fearing judgment. What if I forget my words? What if this happens or that happens? But really it's about them and the gift that you're going to give them through your message that could potentially change someone's life. So I think it's like, to me, like the essence of, not to do, what not to do is actually just, getting in touch, to forget about yourself and think about who that audience is.
Great advice. I really like that a lot. And you're right. The less words that are up on that slide, the better it is. So, keep
Yeah.
those words to a minimum. The worst is having somebody read off of the slides. That's
The
just
bullet
absolutely
points. And
awful. The bullet points. I mean, just throw an image up there. I mean, that's the way I like to do it is I like to put images up there and that helps to guide the talk. So that way I know, okay, this is the order in which I'm going to tell the stories and the
yeah.
image just kind of backs up the story that I'm telling.
Exactly.
And
The
so
slide
that,
should simply enhance what you're saying, like never
yes,
be what you're saying, right?
right.
And memorizing can really throw you off, because if you've memorized word for word, which I used to do just because
Mm,
I thought that was going to help, and I just have like a muscle memory of my mouth, like saying the words. But what happens is, if you forget one word that comes next, sometimes you'll forget the whole thing. You'll just blank out.
right.
So, seeing what you want to share visually can really help too. And simply having an outline, having storytelling in there helps so
Mhm.
much, because your stories. You don't have
Yep.
to memorize them. They're part of who you are. So having some stories woven in, can really help with that too.
I love that. Really good stuff. And, the other thing I want to talk about is the college students, they're all thinking about jobs, like jobs and careers. You will get any college student if you start talking about that because that's what they're most focused on. So, our college students, they need to start networking now as college students in order to get their job or internship. I mean, the worst thing to do would be to wait until you graduate and then say, I don't have a job. Like, no, you should be doing that all the time. So, what advice do you have on that so that way the students can build their confidence and start networking now with CEOs of companies they want to work for?
Yeah, I'm going to speak especially to the introvert students out there, but I think this is good advice for extroverts too. I used to be so fearful of networking, going into a room and suddenly it's just like all these strangers I don't know, and I just want to turn around and leave. But what's really helped me is to kind of lower the bar of my own expectations for myself. What I mean by that is maybe pick out, two people in that room, right? And just have a meaningful conversation, and know that I'm not going to be able to speak to everyone in that room anyway, right? And then have questions on hand. People will remember you. You're going to be more likable if you're asking them questions. So you don't, again, it's not about you. You don't have to worry so much about what people are thinking about me and sharing all these facts about myself, right? Instead, ask a meaningful question that kind of cuts below the hello, my name is, and really gets to know that person. And, like, instead of what do you do, like, what do you love most? Like, what's your story? What got you interested in that? And then really listen. And I find like the three magic words that really tell me more. Right. If I feel it, just tell me more, it just gets the conversation a little bit deeper. And, if someone gives you their business card, like, don't just put it away in your pocket, like, really look at it, comment on it, right? Oh, I love the colors. I love this, whatever, what's this QR code for? That can really help too. So you're really paying attention. You're not just waiting to speak and thinking about what you're going to say next. And to
Mhm.
me, that is the art of networking, is asking questions, asking great questions, being a good listener.
What that's totally brilliant. What Laura is trying to tell you is it's all about the other person. It's not about you. I know that's counterintuitive. I know you're thinking that I need to say all these great things about myself in order for this person to like me. But what's actually true is they like talking about themselves more than anything. So you need to figure out, okay, what is this person all about? What is their objectives? And then once you figure out what their objectives are, then you can talk about how you fit into that, but just start getting their story. Why they got into that business is a great question. And if you focus the whole conversation on them, they're going to walk away saying, wow, Laura's a really interesting person that I need to get to know more. Like it's just totally counterintuitive, but it's true.
Yeah, you can leave them wanting a little bit more and give them a reason to want to connect with you again. I think that's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, not to like not say anything about yourself. I think you're so right. If you're a good listener, you can kind of pick out and share a similar story, like, oh my gosh, that happened to me too. Once whatever it is,
Mhm.
you can do that as well.
Yeah, 100%. I like that. Really good stuff. I was curious about this because I know that you're a coach for public speakers. Do you believe that anybody could be a public speaker?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm an example of that. If I could not even say my name as a child and was extremely fearful, had a panic attack, just to introduce myself, then I know anyone can. And that's what really gives me the faith too. And know, like when I hear someone saying I can never do that, I don't believe them. Like they absolutely can. Like anyone can be a brilliant speaker, and storytelling as well. Sometimes we think we have to be creative or be a writer to be a good storyteller, and you don't. And there are simple frameworks out there to kind of fill in the blank with a story. But if you're just speaking from your heart, getting really clear on what the message is you want to share, and then maybe attaching a story to that, you're a storyteller.
Yeah.
And knowing that we're built for that, to give stories. So it's always easier than we think, and anybody can be a speaker.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Really good stuff. I like all of it. And so you have a book out there. I absolutely love the four ways to slay in the opening from your book. The book is called
Oh,
The
thanks.
Public Speaking Horror Show. So there it is in the background. That is what the cover looks like. I love the whole horror show murder mystery like vibe that you've got going on in the book and on the website. I think it's fantastic. Can you walk us through these four ways to slay?
Oh, yes, I can. Let me look that up right
I
now.
have that. I have the book right here, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a haunted house actually in Cortland. We lived in
Uh-huh,
this old mansion that was built in like the early 1800s.
uh-huh.
And I have one story I think I open up with this book in, actually, of waking up and seeing a ghost by the side of my bed, this little girl. I swear to God, like I saw her. And the crazy thing was, like, she was saying my name. And it wasn't until like much later in life that I kind of connected it, whether I made that up in my mind or it really happened, although I do believe it really happened, that my name was really the scariest thing for me, was saying my name, right?
Mm,
And our names are kind of who we are. So to me, it became this like metaphor as I got older of just finding my own voice, finding out who I really was. Um, but yeah, so I've got in the book, there's a lot of storytelling, there's a lot of dark humor. I do stand-up comedy as well. And four ways to slay,
mhm,
mostly it comes down to, we've already talked about storytelling, absolutely. And the other would be, when we do share the stories, learning how to uh, add some humor, absolutely. I think no matter
mhm,
how dark your message is, no matter how dark your story might be, when you weave in humor, it's such an easy way to just connect with that audience right away. And I think sometimes we just take ourselves way too seriously, right? And we think like we have this presentation coming up, or going to this very serious networking thing, or whatever it is. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves about it, that we have to be perfect,
mm.
and it's very serious. So I think if we lighten up a bit, it really helps, and helps how we approach it. So what I like to do too, if I'm nervous about an upcoming thing, I think this is one of my ways, just like, is approach it with a sense of curiosity. Like, instead of dread, just, hey, I wonder how this is going to go, right? And that way it just eases your mind a bit too. And sometimes I approach things as kind of like a social experiment. Oh, I wonder who I'm going to end up connecting with, what they're going to be like, who's going to ask for my business card, like, and just in life in general, I think approaching with a sense of curiosity can really help.
Really good stuff. Fantastic. Now, again, we're all jealous that you're living in Hawaii right now. What is it like living in paradise? And where do you go on the island to get really good food? Because I'm planning to come visit.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait. Well, I mean, like I said, I'm an introvert, so I actually live on 47 acres of, it's basically like a mostly macadamia nut farm.
Uh-huh.
And I don't see a lot of humans on a, day-to-day basis. There are some wild pigs here, and a lot of the Hawaiians love to, like, they hunt the pigs and make kalua pork, which is very famous. I'm actually married to a Hawaiian Samoan man, so we've we just got married this past December, but he is opening up my palate to like a lot of traditional foods I wouldn't have really tried before. So the staple food here in Hawaii is called poi, just Poi, right? It's made from taro. And what they do is kind of grind it down into kind of a paste. And when I first heard about it, I thought you're supposed to heat it up in a pan. And it was disgusting. It was just so bad. But really, it's meant to be served kind of just lukewarm or cold, and you have it next to poke or other other local cuisine, other things. So poke is just their raw fish. So imagine just the fish part of sushi. My favorite is spicy, which you just mix some mayo with sriracha, and it's ahi, it's tuna, like cubed. That is my favorite thing in the world, is that with poi and maybe some plantain chips. It's like amazing. And then lau lau is just fantastic. It's Kahlua pork, a little bit of like a butter fish put in there for just a little bit of like salty flavor. Then that's all wrapped in leaves and usually I think steamed. And it all just gets so succulent and kind of greasy and salty. And like so there's amazing food to be had here for sure. Yeah.
Laura, you're making me hungry. Now I'm
I know.
thinking
I
about
want
poke
some lau lau now.
and I need to go out and get some tuna cubes. I mean, come on.
Of course, Spam is what we're most known for. And like there was a surplus of Spam left over from World War II. So they made the most of it. All the Hawaiians got like really hooked on Spam. So to this day, if you're into Spam, you can get like flavors you would never have dreamed of or just constantly on display here. It always cracks me up. There's like a bacon ranch Spam and, just craziness. So I'm not really big on Spam, but it's kind of a must if you're going to eat musubi, which is another like really local thing, which is just the layer of Spam with rice, and then it's just wrapped in seaweed. And that's like most of the kids just have that in their lunchbox here.
It's so funny how the Hawaiians like
good.
embrace that Spam. I mean, you can find it everywhere. And it's like, really? This is what you guys like? The canned meat? And they're like, yeah.
I thought it was a stereotype, but now that I'm married to Hawaiian, I'm like, oh no, it's a real thing. He has like his cupboard that's like just Spam and like just all like, yeah.
It's so funny for us to think about. That's hilarious. All right. So listen, I've had a lot of fun. This has been so great chatting with you. If our college student listeners, if they need some coaching around public speaking, or maybe they want to invite you to the mainland here to speak on their college campus, where should they go to connect with you?
Oh, that would be amazing. So you go to my website, which is thespeechslayer.com. Speechslayer.com. There you can sign up for a free like 20-minute talk story with me and see how I might be able to help you, or fill in a little form if you'd like me to be a speaker at your event. That's probably the easiest way. I also have my free mini course, The 7 Deadly Sins of Public Speaking, up on my website there. And my book too is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I'm just going to keep plugging it. So
I love it. I love it. Thespeechslayer.com, and go and pick up her book. It's called The Public Speaking Horror Show. Laura, you are absolutely amazing. So thank you for sharing all this great information with us today.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
All right. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation with Laura, I want you to like it, and I want you to share it with other college students that need help with their public speaking as well. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.